Hey everyone, meetkevin here. The $600 boost for unemployment affects everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about a warning for you regarding the $600 per week stimulus for unemployment and unemployed people, whether or not you receive it. So this means if you're an investor in stocks and real estate, you care about the economy, or you're on unemployment, this video is for you. Now, I'm going to keep this video short and sweet. This is designed to condense everything that we know so far and give you some crystal clear warnings as to what could potentially happen if certain circumstances occur. Let's get right into that. And of course, remember this video is sponsored by life insurance. So sign up for life insurance in as little as 5 minutes and get 2 free stocks with Webull. So here's what's going on. Number one, the CARES Act authorized a $600 per week boost for anyone on unemployment. We already know that. It includes self-employed workers and gig workers. And this boost is on top of normal unemployment pay, which means somebody in New York might receive the $600 boost plus like $500 in state unemployment, like $1,100 a week. Somebody in Florida might receive the $600 plus like $275 per week, or a total of $875 per week. This varies state by state. And obviously, some states have a higher cost of living than others, like California and New York are more expensive to live in than, let's say, Ohio. So this $600 boost expires 3 weeks from today. And there are 3 possible things that are going to happen. We want to pay attention to these because this is where the warning comes from. Number one, the boost gets extended through the rest of the year. If this happens, I personally would expect the market to rally because I don't think anybody's really expecting this. It seems very unlikely because multiple studies by universities and the Congressional Budget Office and all these other think tanks and economists have suggested that the $600 per week is too much and that 80% of recipients, somewhere around 80%, earn more on unemployment than they do when they go to work. And politicians like to say that this creates a disincentive. Why work when you can make more at home doing nothing? Others argue, well, I can't go back to work because my restaurant's closed, or I can't get a job because my job became a permanent job loss, or my company's not hiring people back yet. We're still in a pandemic after all. Now, Democrats are obviously calling for a $600 boost through the end of January of 2021 through the HEROES Act, but a full $600 boost probably has less than a 5% likelihood as of this recording on July 10th. This means that it's very likely the $600 boost is over, and there's a 95% chance of it coming to an end. The second option is a reduced boost. This is probably 75% likely. It's a boost of somewhere between maybe, instead of $600, $400 to $450. That appears to be the most likely boost option right now. Some members of Congress have even considered allowing people to take this $400 to $450 back to work with them as a quasi back to work boost, when in reality you just stay on unemployment while you're working for a few weeks, and then they would brand that as a back to work boost. But this opened up questions of, well, what about the fairness factor? I mean, some people went back to work already, and some people never left work in the first place. What about the heroes and essential workers? So those are things to be debated. And a third option is, the remaining about 20% chance is that we see no boost at all. That is, the $600 simply expires and we go back to normal because maybe some positive jobs data came out, or maybe the economy looks like it's doing well on paper when there are a lot of people suffering. For whatever reason, if Congress decides not to extend the boost, well, then by July 31st, it's done. And realistically, it's probably done in about 20 or less than 20 days. It's probably done in about 15 days or closer to 2 weeks, because the last week of July, the way the calendar falls, you're probably not going to end up getting a check for anyway. So unemployment payments will probably end somewhere around the 25th. Now that you're caught up, here's the warning and the major reason why you should specifically be paying attention to this, no matter whether you're receiving them or not. If Congress takes the third option and extends or does not extend the unemployment boost entirely, that is, they completely get rid of it, real estate, stocks, and the economy are very likely in for a jarring wake-up call. The $600 boost is probably one of the biggest reasons, next to the Fed, the Fed with the money printer, which after all, some of the money they're printing is going to pay for the $600 boost. I mean, we're taking on debt, right? But the Fed printed it. Anyway, part of this $600 boost, or the $600 boost, is probably the reason why markets appear to be so resilient in the face of the second wave that appears to be happening in the South. We're now seeing deaths start increasing as well. There's a lot of bad news to be had out there. And if on top of the existing bad news, the $600 boost goes away, not only are we likely to see a substantial increase in tenants who can no longer pay rent, but we're likely to see what might be sort of a modest eviction crisis turn into an eviction epidemic. And that would be very, very bad for stocks in the short term and real estate in the long term, and the economy pretty much right away, as the $600 boost has actually been generating a lot of consumer demand. Now, the good news is this only appears to have an about 20% chance of happening, but it is still a possibility, and it merits us paying attention to it, because these things can happen quickly. See, many of you may have already heard of things like the mortgage crisis coming. That is, there are going to be waves of foreclosures, and because so many people are taking mortgage forbearance. This is actually not too much of a concern for me. I believe people are they're opting into mortgage forbearance because it's effectively free stimulus money, and it's a substantial amount of free stimulus money. Hey, I encourage people to take mortgage forbearance. If you could take money that you owe now and kick it to the end of 30 years, why would you not do that? I talk about that in detail in a video that I'll link above here, and I'll link it down in the description as well, where you see the life insurance and Webull links. Get 2 free stocks when you deposit $100. But anyway, does this matter to you as a long-run investor, especially for real estate? My expectation is absolutely. Because if we do see a wave of evictions balloon, it's going to have ripple effects through our economy over the next 2 to 5 years. Evictions and foreclosures tend to lag the actual event that spawned them. It takes time to get evictions through the process. Then it takes time for rents to decline, and then it takes time for foreclosures to happen. And then it takes time for the economy to really get damaged because of that. The tipping point is quite possibly the $600 boost. So even if you're thinking to yourself, the $600 boost doesn't affect me, maybe you don't own real estate, maybe you don't take the $600, it's gonna affect your retirement accounts, it's going to affect your investments, it maybe will create a short-term buying opportunity, but quite frankly, it could lead to a long-term amount of pain. So if you're looking for good news, whether or not you receive the $600 boost, pay attention to what Congress does over the next 3 weeks. You want to hear that at the very least, the boost has been extended by no less than $350 to $400. More likely it'll be extended between $400 to $450. It's unlikely that they'll try to scale it to people's previous income. That might be a little bit too tricky. If this gets extended, then, which is more likely, then I continue to be bullish on buying real estate below market value and buying those lifetime value stocks, those companies that you personally believe or your research indicates or your analysis indicates will be here for the next 10 years and will do well. In my opinion, those might be companies, and just take my opinion for what it is, some dude on YouTube giving you their opinion. In my opinion, those might be companies like Apple and Tesla and Amazon, or maybe even Shopify and Etsy. I don't know. How are they going to duke each other out? Well, are they even direct competitors? Who knows? Those are all questions and topics for stock market videos. But pay attention to this. This is really important. So anytime you see something about the $600, focus on that. It affects your money. Hey everyone, meetkevin here. This is your short, facts-only stimulus update for July 10th. As we know, Wall Street Republicans like Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin at the Treasury support another round of stimulus checks. The idea of lowering the stimulus check threshold to $40,000 has been mentioned, especially by conservative Republicans like Mitch McConnell. However, current discussions amongst lawmakers have already evolved away from that, and they say that a reduced stimulus check threshold seems unlikely because a new income limitation would slow down the process of issuing stimulus checks. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, for example, has already said, along with Donald Trump, that they want the next rounds of stimulus payments to be fast, that they can't afford to wait any longer. Trump and Mnuchin, per leaks through the White House, have also already acknowledged that speedy stimulus checks are good for an election. This comes at no surprise, though. Changing the amount of stimulus checks, or the threshold for the stimulus checks rather, is likely to slow down the process, lead to more fact-checking, lead to delays, and ultimately lead to more negotiation difficulties with Democrats. That slows everything down. And that's exactly what Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and Donald Trump don't want, especially on the heels of the election. Now, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has already said that checks can go out faster than they did the first time. That is, they've ironed out kinks, and why essentially make changes now when the kinks are now finally ironed out? This means that if a stimulus package is passed at the end of July, it's likely that stimulus checks could arrive as early as the second week of August, but possibly as late as the third or fourth week of August, hopefully sooner. Quite frankly, I think Congress should stop the break, stop the recess, get the work and pass something, and then have a longer break after that. Pass something and then go on break. My opinion, but for right now, we're waiting until July 20th until they come back. Now, once direct deposits are authorized, the Treasury Department, keep in mind, the first time they had an authorization to issue stimulus checks took about 15 to 18 days to release the first wave of direct deposits. This next wave of direct deposits might be able to be released within approximately 7 days. That goes a lot faster. That means if we see a bill passed by July 31st, we might be able to see checks by August 10th, possibly a little bit earlier. So at least this is some good news. That discussion about $40,000 limits is already being quelled. That would set up too much opposition with Democrats, and that Trump and Mnuchin are really pushing for fast checks. So if they want them fast, hey, just issue them at the larger amount. Now, some of you have been wondering where comments came from this idea about the $40,000 stimulus check limitation, the income limitation. Where did that come from? Well, in part, it came from Senator Mitch McConnell and conservative Republicans who were talking about that. And in a press conference, Mitch McConnell said that they might target stimulus checks to people making less than $40,000. I mean, that was pretty blunt. But where did that actual idea come from? Well, they based this off a figure from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who stated in a speech probably around 2 months ago now, that research suggests this pandemic is hurting those making under $40,000 disproportionately more than those making more money. Now, personally, I think there are a lot of Americans who will strongly disagree with that, especially those making between $41,000 and $100,000. Maybe not so much the six-figure earners, but I do think there's a vast group of Americans who don't want to hear this. Now, moving on, Mnuchin supports changing the $600 per week unemployment pay to 100% of your prior pay. However, this has also proven to be very difficult, and it's much more likely that we are going to see a $400 to $450 bump based also on discussions with lawmakers. Nancy Pelosi, by the way, is demanding at least $1 trillion for state and local governments, while Republicans are stuck between $1 trillion to maybe $2 trillion for a complete package. The next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be very heated at Capitol Hill, especially once they return. Stay tuned for that fight. Now, in terms of heroes, again, sadly, very little updates for heroes. It seems like the discussion around heroes has gone completely dark. We haven't heard mention of heroes since the HEROES Act passed, and right now it does not look promising that the HEROES Act will actually pass both houses of Congress and get signed into law. It looks much more likely that we are looking for a new proposal from Mitch McConnell, which Mitch McConnell has stated we should expect within now the next about 11 to 10 days. So stay tuned for his proposal coming up soon. By the way, if you like this facts video so far, could I bug you to comment down below and possibly share this on Facebook and social media? It helps a lot. Thanks so much. And to give back, many of you have been asking for a video on how to buy your first house or how to buy stocks and how to pick stocks and, an easy video for both of those things. I have made those videos and released them today. They're completely free to watch. The links are down below. I might put a link up here for those as well. I encourage you to check those out. In other news, the SBA's EIDL program, the EIDL program, is now down for maintenance. It's unclear whether or not that grant program will reopen, but congratulations to all of you who got your $1,000 to $10,000 grants. Moving on, the Financial Times spoke with Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci stated that 20% of coronavirus cases require hospitalization, even though the mortality rate is only about 1%. Georgia's cases, by the way, have quadrupled since June. Georgia has 4,500 new cases, up from an average of about 1,000 back in June. Florida's cases are up about 8x since June, and California and Texas are up about threefold since June. Mortgage forbearance applications are down. I personally encourage you apply for mortgage forbearance unless you plan to purchase or refinance real estate within the next 3 months. I have a video breaking down all of my thoughts on mortgage forbearance, which I will link down below or up here as well. Real estate mortgage rates are also down